of Alternative Dispute Resolution and Resolution RGNUL, we welcome you all to the second session of our webinar series titled A Career in ADR and Insider. Today's session is perhaps the most important session for many of us who are keen to pursue a career in mediation, but have a very pertinent question in our mind. What are the career opportunities in mediation? To lay out a brief description of how we shall navigate through this tough terrain, we would be discussing the role of a mediator, how to pursue mediation and be a mediator oneself, should one even pursue mediation, and so on. To answer all these questions of ours, we are graced by the presence of Mr. Jonathan Rodriguez. Mr. Jonathan is a certified civil and commercial mediator listed with the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs for the Western region and is the ACAS of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and an accredited and empaneled mediator with the Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation. He is the co-founder and partner at the PACT. He has trained in restorative facilitation under the guidance of Easy Justice Australia, an award winner at CDRC Vienna and ICCMW Paris. He has coached competing teams from MNLU Bombay, NUJS Kolkata, NALSAR, and international mediation competitions. He has worked with over 4,500 students over the last 3 years at national mediation boot camps, held over 38 different universities in India. These are few of his many accomplishments, and if I decide to discuss them all, then we perhaps will have to have another session for our today's topic. Hence, not wasting any more time, we shall begin with our session. Sir, would you like to address our curious learners before we begin with the Q&A session, or can we straight away begin with the same?
Hi, Aditya. Good morning. Good evening to everyone. And I'm unable to put my video on for some reason. I'm not sure whether the host is disabled or what, but I can't see you either. So I'm not sure what's up.
Yes, sir, we'll get that issue fixed, sir. Just give me a minute.
Sure.
I guess we can switch on the videos now.
Hello, sir. I believe the glitch is now fixed.
Good evening. Good evening to everyone. Technology lets us down sometimes, but here we are.
Yeah, sir.
Let's get started.
Sure, sir. Now, sir, we are all well acquainted with a mediator, CAMP co-founder, and a master holder in mediation from the well-renowned Strathclyde University. However, if you had to describe the man and the mediator known as Jonathan Rodriguez, how would you go about it?
Thanks, Aditya, and good evening to everyone who has joined us. Just a little correction there. I'm not the co-founder of CAMP, but I'm the co-founder of PACT, which is a mediation education firm that we started in 2016. CAMP was my previous workplace. I'm still connected with them in a small way as an advisor, but I spent the last couple of years working at CAMP in Bangalore. So they're two different entities, of course. How do I describe myself? I'm not sure whether I have the right definition for it, but because I guess you have different ways of describing who you are as a mediator. I've always looked at myself from a mediator, not from the legal lens, but more from the psychology and people lens. And so I would say I have worn different hats all through my career. I have a background in psychology and law. I worked as a journalist for 5 years in a mainstream newspaper. So I would say I try and bring all the skills to how I want to make a career out of mediation. And yeah, I guess being a mediator is all about trying to de-escalate conflict for me. I don't want to kind of portray an ideal situation of me being a peacemaker or me being someone who goes out there and solves all conflicts and brings peace to the world. I know I can't do that. I know that's a stupid idea. Conflict is inevitable. It's around us. It's always going to be around us. I think what we can do is be aware of it, be mindful of it, and try and de-escalate it as much as possible, and try and bring some, I would say, rational to some of these conflicts that are around us, and of course try and resolve them amicably. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Thank you, sir. And so how would you describe your job title and a role of a mediator to someone who only knows litigation as a mean of dispute resolution, and that too from the banks of knowledge known as Bollywood? Like, we all are familiar with this most famous, or I'd rather say famous now, dialogue, Tariq pe Tariq. And that is how most people see litigation and dispute resolution nowadays. In fact, many of us still have that conservative point of view that litigation is the only means of dispute resolution, sir. So how would you address that audience of yours?
Well, let me start off by saying that certainly the mediation community does need a Bollywood movie. So hopefully we can have a good Bollywood movie on mediation soon. Movies, of course, create huge awareness. You know that how aware we've gotten about so many things thanks to a lot of good movies that are coming out of late. You have some of the good artsy actors today like Rajkumar Rao and Ayushmann doing some fantastic movies. So hopefully we'll have a Bollywood movie soon. And if I do get a chance to even act as a side actor, I would be happy for it. But I think a mediator is someone who is engaged to help continue a negotiation. If I had to explain this to somebody who's so used to just being in court, or someone who just has one understanding of conflict, how conflicts are resolved, I think a mediator is someone who is engaged to help continue a negotiation that has either failed to take off or has actually taken off. It has begun and it has hit a roadblock, right? So a very simple definition that we follow in our practices, because there are brilliant academic definitions coined by professionals across the globe, right? But these are great. But at the end of the day, what is the practical definition of mediation? Either two people cannot negotiate, like they have not even tried to, they've not even attempted to speak to each other, and they're like, no, I don't want to see his face, but I want to resolve this. Can you help me? And so I believe in negotiation. I believe in resolving this amicably. I believe in trying to find a consensus, a mutually accepted solution, but I don't want to see his face, and I've not even tried speaking to him. So mediation has not begun yet. Sorry, a negotiation has not begun yet I believe in the process of negotiation. So can you come help me, is what someone will say. Or they will say, I believe in negotiation. I tried negotiating with him, but he's just completely insane. Can you help me fix this? Can you help me continue a negotiation? So mediation, in the most simplest words, I would say, is engaging a neutral third party to help continue a negotiation, either one that has not yet taken off or it has taken off and hit a roadblock, right? So to a lot of people who say, what it is about, there are fantastic definitions about it everywhere, but the basics of it is, this is what it is. And I just want to take a pause here for a second. I know I'm addressing a wide range of people in the audience. I'm not quite sure what the background of the audience is. And there might be a few of you who are very well acquainted with mediation already. And some of my answers might come across very simplified to you, but it comes from a very practical sense of what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the fraternity, about where I am and what I do. So I hope you appreciate the background of my responses. And I'm not going to try and make this too academic. I want it to be a practical understanding of where mediation is right now in India.
Thank you, sir. So right now we just had a gist of when does mediation come into action. So to tweak that a little, sir, more importantly, when should mediation not come into action? Is mediation therefore all good or powerful? Or there are certain times when, having a more conservative way is preferred over mediation?
Well, I'm a mediator, so I'm obviously going to say that every case that can be resolved should be resolved through mediation. Having said that, there are certain cases that are not suitable for mediation. And, so when we started to do this, and especially through camp, we did a lot of work with this where we tried to build a kind of, I would say, a criteria of what kinds of cases are good for mediation, what kinds of cases are not good for mediation. But I think let's start with why should you mediate? Why would I mediate? Like if I had a dispute, why would I mediate? 4 reasons. There are many reasons. There are multiple reasons, but I'll just stick to 4. Okay. One is if I want to continue that relationship, if I want to maintain that relationship with the other person that I have right now a conflict or a dispute with, right? So it could be a personal dispute, it could be a business dispute, it could be a commercial dispute, it could be a community dispute. But do I really want to continue this relationship beyond this conflict? I want to fix this and I want to move on. I want to continue with this relationship. I want to continue with this personal relationship, right? I want to continue with this business relationship. I want to continue working in the workplace that I am working with. I want to move on, right? So if you really have that as a priority, you would, because once you go down the litigation path, you can't fight your wife in litigation for 15 years and then come and try and sleep with her in bed. I know you might be too young to understand this, Aditya, but someday you will. And it's not that I have a wife, I'm not married. I'm just telling you, I've had enough of conversations with people in divorce mediations where they've gone down this path. They've gone down the path of litigation. And it does not even take 15 years. It takes like literally sometimes even 4 or 5 months. And once you go down that adversarial path, you can't come back. So if you want to preserve a relationship, you want to choose mediation. And we have had so many young couples who come sometimes to the mediation table and say, it's not working out, but we respect each other and we want to move ahead. We have a lot of commercial disputes where people come and say, this is not working out. Or partners in a law firm or any other firm come to us and say that we have a dispute between the partners and we want to resolve this amicably. We want to move on. Right? So relationships, mental health is my second most important thing. And if you notice, I've still not come to time and cost. I've started with relationships first. Second is your mental health, because you know what's going to happen to you if you take down the litigation path. It's crazy. You don't anticipate it because you are on a high of saying, I'm going to win this. I'm going to teach the other person the lesson. We're going to figure this out and you will regret for the rest of your life. That's all that you're thinking at that point of time. But you have no idea what's coming your way. The excruciatingly long-winded process of litigation, continuous trips to your lawyer, the fact that it keeps getting postponed, your disappointment that you will get from some of the judgments that will come by your way, just the different kind of allegations that will be thrown to you by the other side, which you've not even heard of before, by the way. So all that stuff starts really, ruining your mental health. So mental health, if you want to preserve your mental health, you want to try mediation. Thirdly, time and cost. I don't have to take you down that path. You know how much we spend on our litigations. You know how much time is spent on this. The average lifespan of a civil court case in India is 9 to 12 years. Okay, and the average lifespan of a commercial mediation that I have witnessed is somewhere between 25 to 40 hours, maybe max 60 hours. So I'm going to rest my case by saying 40 to 60 hours and 9 to 12 years. So we can do the math there. We're all smart enough for that. And of course,
just a clarification. So by referring to hours, do you mean the hours of the session or total hours? Like when we say
the session. That's a good point, Aditya, because see, in a physical situation, what would happen is mediations would happen during the day. People would come and start at 9:30 in the morning, go till like 9:30 in the night, because remember they had flown into a new city, that booked a hotel, so they were spending a lot. So they would do an entire day, sometimes even 12 hours. So in those kind of situations, 40 hours could be done in 3 days, 4 days? You come on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the mediation will be
maximum done. A week, let's say.
Yeah. But today those 40 hours to 60 hours can go across a couple of months, because people you can't do such long sessions online. So you do
still a better trade-off than spending 9 to 12 years in a court.
Yeah, I think all of us on this call will agree to that. And fourthly, I think privacy. A lot of disputes are very personal, very private, and it doesn't even have to be personal in the sense of, say, divorce mediations and affairs and stuff. It could be even commercial disputes, it could be partnership disputes. They don't want things to get out of the company. We all know what happened with Cyrus Mystery and the Tata Group and how it spiraled into something that was so, I would say, uncomfortable for even us who are not even associated with it. Just give us our goods, just don't tell us what's going on over there. So it was, and I think they tried. I'm sure they tried to negotiate. I'm sure they tried to bring in someone who could help them resolve this properly, but it didn't work out, right? Maybe they didn't have the right person there, but yeah. So I think relationships, mental health, time and cost, privacy are some of the very basic reasons why you would try mediation.
So according to you, sir, and what is the success rate of mediation? So, like, how many mediations are actually successful? Like, some might, I'm sure, end up in litigation, but still, a rough idea.
So I'll give you two perspectives that. So right now, especially at least there is a court annexed mediation centers. Almost every high court in India has a mediation center.
Yes, sir.
And I think the success rates, they are anything between 60 to 80, depends where you are, right? Especially the ones in Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi are doing very well. So, you have those good rates. From a private mediation perspective, I think it's almost same. It's similar to that. It's around 80 to 85% success rate, right? Now, it really now, once again, how do you determine success rate? Sometimes it doesn't have to be completely resolved. Sometimes a mediator has helped parties talk, and we are witnessing that more and more nowadays. By the way, a lot of parties come to us. They enjoy the mediation process. They're making progress, but they can't get that final agreement. All right. So, say it's a commercial dispute going to crores of rupees, but the parties have not spoken to each other at all for this duration of this dispute, and they've gone down the litigation path. But mediation has helped de-escalate the process, has paused those court cases, right? It's allowed them to have a conversation. Say 30, 40 years have gone by, they've not found a solution. So they say, we want to end the mediation. But we have seen parties go and actually withdraw court cases, say, hey, let's just take a break here. Let's talk between ourselves. So sometimes negotiation continues after mediation and it settles. So it's a very tricky question to ask, to kind of respond to say what is the success rate. But let me reframe that question to say what has been the rate. How many people actually go back on what they've agreed to, and that answer is 0, which means that if we have settled in mediation, and in my experience in the mediators that I've worked with, in the mediation firms that I've worked with, if two parties have sat down at the table, and at least I can speak for my own record, and resolve a dispute, till today, the percentage of someone who's opened up a case is 0, which means that they've had a successful experience in the mediation. And so, they might not have settled all the issues, but at least what they've settled, they have been allowed to go back forward.
Thank you, sir. So moving on, sir, is mediation better than its counterparts, litigation and arbitration? Or is it even what should be a first preference of a person, sir?
Well, I can't really answer that question because, as I said, I'm going to say yes, for sure. It's my bread and butter, and that's why I'm in business, right? But I think that's where the lawyer comes in. And, I have a TEDx talk on this, which I hope I can share with all the participants. I share it with the organizers, and I'm sure the organizers will share it with all of you attending. So do go out and check my TEDx talk on the multi-door dispute resolution, where I talk about this, how a lawyer can kind of use his or her discretion to understand what kind of cases are good for mediation and what kind of cases are not. A mediator will, of course, have his or her own criteria to say whether this is mediatable or not. I think for me, it's very simple. If two parties want to resolve amicably, want to negotiate, want to find a mutually acceptable solution, then it's mediatable. Now, if one party is agreeable and the other party is not, then the mediator can help the party who's agreeable to mediate. We're not even talking about settlement here, just to mediate, try. The mediator or the mediation firm can help the agreeable party to reach out to the non-agreeable party and say, hey, X wants to have a conversation with you, I will facilitate it. I will make sure it's civil. I will make sure it's safe. I will make sure, you have a chance to be heard and you can speak, and you don't have to settle. This is voluntary. You don't have to agree to, I'm not going to pass a judgment. So I will work with all that. I will try and bring Y to the table. X wants to mediate, Y does not want to mediate. I will try to bring Y to the table. Now, Y might say yes, and then we're on. Y might say no, and we'll have to let it go, right? We can't do anything about it. But if both X and Y say, no, we don't want to mediate, then it's non-mediatable. It's as simple as that. There is no two way about it. So it's very simple. I think people are getting really, I would say, getting really angry with, or upset about the new mediation law that's come out and Section 6, and everyone's like, there's a lot of articles being written and all kinds of crazy debates. Section 6 is very simple, boss. It says go and get yourself acquainted with the process of mediation. No one's asking you to settle. No one's asking you to even participate. You go there and open a newspaper and read for 2 hours if you want. But at least know that there is a mediator. Know that this is the process. Know that you have a chance to settle it through a conversation, through a dialogue. And if it's not working out for you after 2 sessions, go back and go to the path of litigation. That's fine. So, the new law is encouraging people. I think more than a process perspective, that Section 6 is more as an educative tool. It's more of an awareness tool to promote mediation in India. So anything that 2 parties want to mediate is mediatable, as long as it's not a rape case or a murder case. So or anything else that's not really something that can be mediated from a criminal angle. So there's a very interesting book that's written by this gentleman named Pascal Convillis, and some of you on this call might be aware of him, but he's written a book about mediation and with regards to criminal cases. So there are a lot of jurisdictions abroad that are actually are quite opening up to mediation for even some criminal disputes, say even like theft and robbery.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's the world is opening up to these kind of things. So I think there is a way forward, but India has to first get used to its civil and commercial disputes and before it goes to its criminal disputes. Otherwise, there will be debates about why mediation is not good before it even starts to see the good part of it. So I think India has got a long way to go.
Sir, since the beginning of this, you mentioned bread and butter. So I want to ask this very pertinent question, which I'm sure we all must be curious about, sir. Is mediation a lucrative career option? Is it mainstream enough to become a standalone career? Additionally, sir, are there any specific areas within law wherein mediation is more often sought as a method of dispute resolution compared to others?
Yeah, so Aditya, my simple answer, is it a lucrative mediation? Is it a lucrative career option for law students? My simple answer is no. But I don't want to throw water on everyone's hopes. Let me explain my answer, okay? The mediations that come today are basically, mediations that happen in India are either, court referred, or they're through mediation firms, or it's ad hoc mediations. And ad hoc mediations are mostly senior lawyers, senior counsels, or retired High Court or Supreme Court judges. They have got that reputation of being arbitrators and then being judges, and then they also get cases to be mediators. So people are going to them because they know them, right? So if you have just graduated in law school and you think you're going to get cases to mediate, that would be unreal. It's impractical unless you have really good godfathers in the legal industry. But otherwise, it's impossible, right? So I think what I'm trying to say is that you have to be a bit entrepreneurial if you want to think about a career in mediation, okay? And you have to be a bit courageous as well, and you have to kind of open up to different possibilities that you will have to go through till you become a mediator. And that's my career for now. I have not reached my goal. I have not even reached halfway on my goal. I'm still on the journey. So I find it a bit sometimes awkward to have these conversations and this webinars on careers in ADR because I'm still on my journey. But I think what I have tried to do is I try to mix up all my different passions together to try and get me to where I want to be, say 5 years, 10 years from now. I've always looked at mediation from a psychological perspective, though I did my LLB and I did my LLM in mediation, but I also have a background in psychology. So yes, that's what's going to take me there sometime. So I think you got to start mixing your academics training. You've got to do a bit of practice. You have to do a lot of business development for mediation, and you have to do a whole lot of networking to get into that space. There are a lot of people doing fantastic work. There are a lot of people building their careers slowly. I know a lot of amazing people who are doing some great work. I'm happy to take a couple of names, off the, on the record. Actually, there's this professional from Bangalore. Her name is Ami Dharam. She does fantastic work on her own. She started her own practice, and it's going to take her some time, but she's doing it slowly, and she's doing well for herself, right? And I think there are a lot of others out there. CAMP is a mediation firm that has been established in 2015. They're a collective of lawyers who came together and formed a mediation firm, and so then they have that collective energy to take it forward. There are a lot of other institutes like CMC in Bombay, right? You have so many other institutes that come together. You have people from various practices who come together and try and support that kind of movement. But there is a lot of power in institutional mediation. That's what something like, say, CMC provides, CAMP provides, BIMAC provides, or IAMC provides in Hyderabad now, or Madhyam, or wherever it is, right? Or AMC, FCDR in Chennai. So the institutional power is great, because then it's not just one person, doing this as a lone ranger. It's not ad hoc. It's more institutional, where the collective brings credibility and integrity to the profession. Also, you have a set of rules that everyone follows, code of conduct that everyone follows. So to get into a system like that is going to take you time, and a fresh graduate cannot get into a system like that. What I would say is that acquiring the mediation skills is going to be very, very helpful, because I know a lot of law firm partners now who run disputes teams, who are looking for young lawyers who not only have a good understanding of arbitration procedure and practice, but also for mediation negotiation skills, because that's going to come in handy. Remember, there's a little bit of negotiation and mediation even in arbitration. There's a little bit of that's going to happen, and you need to have those soft skills. You need to have those communication skills. You need to have those problem solving skills to get across those lines. Say if you have 10 issues that are to be arbitrated, and if you can get 4 of them resolved before you go to the arbitrator, that's saving you 40% of your cost with the arbitrator, right? And who do you put there? And if I'm a law firm partner and I want to make sure that we can try and resolve this, why would I go and hire mediator X for this? I'll be like, Aditya has got the mediation skills. He's trained as a mediator, but I don't want him as a mediator. I want him to use his mediator brain. I want him to use his mediation calm and composed attitude. And I want him to sit across the table with the other side's lawyer and try and resolve 3 of these issues, negotiate through it. I'm not going to talk about mediation, but use your mediation skills, negotiate through this 3 matters, get them sorted out. So at the end of the day, we're arbitrating just 6 matters, 6 issues, right? So I think that trend is surely coming. It's always been there, but it's gonna happen more. And now with the law coming out, I think, you need to have a mediation lawyer. If it does go to mediation, then you'll need to have a mediation lawyer. So I know understands the nuances of how to behave in a mediation setting. You can't be behaving the same way how you behave in arbitration or in court. It requires a different nuance. So as a mediator is going to, start correcting you all the time. So as a mediation advocate, the future is bright. Yes, you have, as soon as you graduate, you can start practicing as a mediation lawyer. Why not? Yeah, you have a client who comes to you and says, I have a problem with so and so. You can say, let's try and negotiate this first with the other side, and you can be the counsel. If not, you can take this to mediation. But as a mediator, it will take you at least 5 to 10 years, maybe more, to set yourself up. Yeah, that's the truth. Sorry.
So I believe mediation is on its nascent stage, but it has a bright future, in your words.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
So I'm sure we all have a general idea of what mediation is. So now the next question in everyone's mind would be, how does one become a mediator?
Yeah, I think the national standards are to do a 40-hour training.
Okay.
But, you just don't do one training and say, okay, I'm done. I think you have to keep updating yourself. You can keep doing refresher courses. The 40-hour training is not enough. You have to keep doing courses. You have to keep doing clinics. You have to keep observing mediations, getting feedback, doing co-mediations with senior mediators, and then slowly start building a practice. So I would say, it's not like, I would say it's more like learning to drive in many ways, right?
Experience, basically.
Yeah. But then the thing is that unlike, you get a driving license and then you go and you drive, I would say your mediation 40-hour training is like a learning license, and you need to then go and experience it. The problem is that it's not your car, and you're working with other people's lives and other people's relationships. So you have to be careful, right? And so you can't just go there and start doing things yourself. You probably have to bring an experienced person with you. So here's an interesting take. So say you have done a 40-hour training, and someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, can you resolve my case? I have a dispute with my, neighbor or my something else. Say it's a commercial dispute. Say it's I don't know. It's just recovery of some money that has to be done." Now, you might have the skills, but you will not have the confidence of the nuance of it. So you can reach out to a senior mediator and say, "Here's a case that someone has reached out to me. Can you be the lead mediator and I'll be your co-mediator, and I can learn on the go," right? And if you do a couple of these, then you're ready to go solo in some time. But also keep updating yourself, because there are different trainings for different skills. So I would say invest regularly. So don't go and do like 4 trainings in 6 months. It's not going to help you at all. Do a training, let it sink into you for a year. In a year's time, do another training. Then let it sink into you a bit more. So you can keep doing trainings regularly. Don't do it at a stretch. Don't do like 4 trainings in 6 months, as I said. It's not going to help you. It's just going to look very fancy in your CV, but you would have gained nothing out of it, right? Because you have not allowed the practice to come into the training. Because you have trained for 40 years, you need to put it into practice and see where it's taking you. And then it's like, oh, I got a few, a few challenges, a few limitations, and I want to do a specific training to fix those challenges. And then you do another training. So, pace it out and keep yourself updated all through, I would say.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you yourself come from a very diverse educational background. You have done psychology and then you have done law. So, sir, what according to you would be an ideal educational background, or is there a specific education background that will requires to be a mediator? And do we all really need to be lawyers to become mediators, as it seems to be that all mediators are advocates first? So is that a norm or something, or do you think that the case can be otherwise as well?
No, that's a great question, Aditya. The simple answer to that, no, you don't have to be a lawyer to be a mediator. There is a master's course. There's a master's course running in Mumbai, MNLU Mumbai, which I think 75% of the participants or students in that batch are non-lawyers, have no legal background. Okay, so you don't have to be a lawyer to be a mediator. Yes, being a lawyer helps, especially in a country like India, which is very, very litigious. So you'll have parties who will come up and say, who will expect you to understand the law, because questions not only to the parties but to the lawyers as well, right? So as a lawyer, it does help you. Having said that, a good mediator who's not a lawyer is someone who's trained to use the lawyer in the room, because the parties have their own lawyers.
Yes,
so
sir.
A good mediator who does not understand the legal side of things will have the right skills, the right training to use the lawyer well to get the legal bit out there, right?
Basically, ask the right questions.
Right, ask the right questions. And basically, you have the process expert and you have the subject expert, right?
Okay.
So, and there are mediators who prefer being a process expert, and there are mediators who prefer being both subject expert and I would say process expert. It depends on the parties as well. Some parties come up and say that we want a mediator who's also a lawyer. I've also had parties who come up and say, we don't want a mediator who's a lawyer. I can't stand a lawyer. So,
So why would a party say so?
I'm not going to say this on record now.
Okay.
So I think it always will come down to the preference of the lawyers, right? And the preference of the parties, and they will see who they want. Does it help you to be a mediator by being a lawyer? Yes, of course. It gives you a better momentum in India for sure, but you don't need to be one. You can be a psychologist, you can be a teacher, you can be a policeman, you can be a business leader, you can be a partner of a big company, or of a firm, or a director at a company. You can be anyone out there, as long as you have the right expertise to take it forward. Let's take, for example, it's a marine dispute, right? It's something to do with maritime law. Now, if you have a mediator who also has a background in that would be great. But it doesn't have to be a maritime lawyer. It could be someone who has worked in that field, even say to the bureaucracy, or in a leadership position. Yeah, and that person can bring his or her expertise to the table. So I would say it does help, but there can be parties who will say, like, we know our stuff. We don't need to have someone who's an expert in maritime law or in the subject. We can handle this. We just need someone who can keep us calm, help us to communicate better, break all the roadblocks in the way, and take us to a solution. And then that's the kind of mediator you will choose. So choosing a mediator is very, very crucial, I would say.
So, sir, you are saying that people from other professions can come into this practice of mediation, sir. But what are the other professions which can have a firm grasp on the concept? Like, what do you think? Which should be some other professions one should pursue if they don't want to do law? Because some people, like, they don't want to do law, they don't want to go through all these textbooks. Because law is the area which solicits extensive reading. So there can be people who want to do mediation but don't want to be a lawyer. So what professions should they get in?
You meant to say what kind of professions will benefit from also being a trained mediator in many ways. So, anybody who you think requires to have conflict resolution skills. If you're an HR leader in a company, you need to have mediator skills, because you're continuously, on a daily basis, trying to resolve disputes between your employer and your employee, and you're stuck in between, and the employer expects you to work for him, and the employee expects you to work for him, and then you got to figure this out, right? As a neutral there. It's a tough role, and a lot of HRs can't do that. And even we always encourage HRs, if you can't resolve a dispute, don't try too hard, and actually bring in a neutral elsewhere. So HR folks can easily do with a lot of mediator skills. Policemen, policewomen can do a lot with, I would say, mediator skills. They can use it in their practice.
So how policemen?
Well, go and spend a day at a police station anywhere in India and see the number of random stupid cases that come up at their doorstep. And someone who's calm, composed, has the right resolution skills, can handle those situations in a better way, right? Instead of just smacking people left and right, Like the other day, I went to the police station for some work, and I had someone, they brought a drunk person in who was roaming around with, just absolutely no clothes on. And they brought him into the station, and there's one cop who just kept slapping him for like 5 minutes. And I was like, what is wrong with you? I mean, why do you need to do this, right? So I think it does help them. It does help them in many ways. Having said that, there are a lot of policemen who have natural skills to handle conflict and handle crisis situations. So I think mediator skills can help a lot for a lot of this kind of people. Psychologists can get in the way. They have a good understanding of people and I would say internal conflicts. They would make great mediators. People who are in leadership positions will benefit richly from being trained as a mediator, because then you can go out and I would say handle the situations.
So mediation involves understanding the emotions of the party, as you said, but it also needs a general understanding of either the law or the subject matter of dispute. So do you think it's better to be experienced in litigation of say civil engineering or medicine, and then after a while learn mediation skills and help resolve disputes, like a medical panchayat or medical council of panchayat of the olden times?
I wouldn't draw that analogy. As I'm just reiterating the fact that we don't have to be all those things to be a mediator. But if you are, then you're of course you have just a different skill set. You can just say that I'm also a civil engineer, I'm also a mediator. So if there's a dispute that's concerning a civil engineering kind of a subject, you're the man. They will choose you above somebody who does not understand civil engineering at all, like me. If you and me are in the same room and you know civil engineering and I have no clue about civil engineering, and we are the only two mediators available on the panel, who will they choose? They'll obviously choose, right? So market forces will always decide. but you don't have to be that. That's what I'm saying, right? So
Yes, sir.
market forces always decide. It's always a plus point for sure, any day. Yeah. So the question that should you become an expert in something else before you get into mediation? I would actually agree with that. Yes. So if you, I would suggest spend time, be a civil commercial lawyer, be a lawyer who deals with civil and commercial cases for say 4 or 5 years, get a grasp of the subject, and then you'll be a better mediator. Yes, agreed. You don't have to be that, but yes, you will.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, going on a more personal note here, is the role of a mediator frowned upon by your litigation peers? Do members of the legal fraternity question a decision of not doing what a lawyer typically does? And do they even consider mitigation as an actual dispute resolution mechanism? The conservative lawyers or the litigation peers of yours?
Well, I've encountered lawyers who are excruciatingly difficult to work with. And, all that I can do as someone who's trying to put together the mediation is reach out to this lawyer and try and make the lawyer understand that, you can help your client in different ways and besides just mediation. But then there are also good lawyers who understand this and don't have to be convinced so much, and they've already bought into the process. So I would say there is a different range of it. But the number of lawyers who are convinced are the minority for sure. I would say it's less than even 1% of the lawyers in the country, because 99% of the lawyers still think it's going to bite into their livelihoods, which it's not. The problem is that lawyers in India do not have awareness of how to bill for their mediation services. And I've been screaming on top of my lungs for the last 2 years now. Teach lawyers how to bill for their services as a mediation lawyer, and mediation will boom in India. Because they're like, how do we charge? Mediation is over in 40 hours. What do we do? Well, you can still bill for 40 hours. You learn how to bill, right? So I'm sure there's a way of training lawyers of how to bill for mediation. Because just like arbitration, when arbitration came in, it was tough. They didn't understand how to bill. And then now it's become a very lucrative kind of, I would say, profession to be an arbitration counsel. So if you start training mediation counsel on how to bill, because at the end of the day, it's business, it's livelihood. I understand that. I'm not asking you to do a noble job, right? You have to charge for the services you're providing, and you're required at the table. A lawyer is important to the client. But if you learn how to bill, then you will not start looking at this as a livelihood taker. More, in fact, you will start thinking of this about, I can get rid of 5 of my clients in 1 month, and get more clients, and at the end of the day, you'll also be satisfied and go to sleep happy. I hope so. So I guess, we got to fix the root of the problem. And I have no shame in saying that the root of the problem of why mediation is not working in India is that do not know how to bill for their mediation services. Fix that, and mediation will boom in India, right? That's the way it stands.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I would like now like to hand over the session to Anurag.
Having discussed that, sir, just to go a little back in this journey of becoming a mediator, as an alma mater of the University of Goa, and that too a fairly recent one, how would you describe your experience in law school?
Well, once again, I'm not going to share these things on record. I wasn't the perfect student in law school. I was actually working as a full-time journalist while I was in law school. So yeah, I spent half of my time in law school droopy-eyed and trying to stay awake, because I used to stay awake till 2 a.m. in the night working at the Times of India when I was there. So law school was more like my secondary gig. But I'm proud that I cleared every paper without a back. I think what I'm grateful for is the opportunity to go out and explore mediation. I did not know about mediation existed before I got to law school, right? In my second year of law school, I got a chance to represent my university abroad, and I'm grateful for that. So I think sometimes if you're destined for it, it just falls into your lap. And I took it with both hands, and I made a career out of it for the last 5-6 years. I had no clue something like this existed. I was on my own path. If I did not discover this, I think I would have been a journalist for the last 6 years. I wouldn't have come to mediation or to law. But I think it's important to when I look back at it today, and even today, so I've kind of moved away from the law quite a lot over the last 3-4 years. Even though I have a bachelor's, I've never practiced in court, right? So I don't have any experience. I don't consider myself a lawyer, though I have an education background. But I think it's important, and I know there are a lot of law students in law school today, and probably half of them are listening to me, that who feel they don't belong in law school. This is not their thing. A law degree is never going to be a waste. It's always going to help you. But I think at some point in your life, you have to reflect back and see what you really want to do, and not go down a journey that you don't really appreciate, because you'll not enjoy it day in, day out. And it'll always stress you out. So I think it's important to figure that out. And for me, I knew that it was not my thing. I started to move back from it faster so that I could really continue doing. I wanted to be a mediator, but not as a lawyer. So it could be from a different path. So yeah, very uninspiring, but thank you for the question.
Right, sir. So we have also been getting a few questions as to what are a few things that one should try in law school to explore mediation. And more importantly, while being in law school, how should one decide on whether to become a mediator or not?
As I said, to be a mediator, you're not going to be a mediator until you turn 30 or 35, right? Nothing before that. Don't even think about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe by the time you graduate in 2030, 2035, life will be different. But at least till 2030 or 2035, I don't see a fresh graduate becoming straight into a mediator. That's not going to happen. It's not like a dentist can just go and start a practice. They have to go through, to work in some hospitals, to get experience, and then you set up your own clinic. Sorry, I forgot the question.
What are a few things that one should explore in law school?
Yeah.
To know
So competitions, yes, go out there, test your skills. You might think you like the idea, but you don't have the skills. So you'll get humiliated in some competitions. No worries. Go back, read, learn, train, go for trainings, do some workshops, attend webinars, attend conferences, get in all the insight you can. I think that's very important. You need to build your own knowledge base and skill base of this. Try and practice it as much as you can, right? If you're working in a law firm, if you're working in a chamber, if you're working in chambers, say with senior lawyers, bring up an old case, say, speak to your boss and say, this case seems like it's suitable for mediation. Can I work on this? Can I try out this? And if you have a good senior, he or she might say yes, and might give you that liberty to go and do that. So be curious, go and try and find cases suitable for mediation, and take a lead on those. Same thing in law firms, I would say. It's easier to get these kind of things in chambers than in law firms. But but go out there and try and get curious. Look at the whole stack of papers. Just go to your boss and say, which are your 10 most frustrating cases that you've just not been able to get through, and you're just like, get this file out of my table. Ask your boss, who's been practicing for like, I don't know, 10, 20 donkey years, right? And he'll be like, it's in that corner of the cupboard. Go pull out all those files, see, read to them, and I bet you 9 of those 10 will be suitable for mediation. And they're just people who are just with their egos have dragged it on for years and years. And then pick up one and say, can I take a lead on this? But before you do that, you have to first gain the knowledge of mediation, the skills of mediation, get yourself trained, do some workshops, do some training. So then because even when you speak to your boss, he'll be like, no, I don't think this is going to work. Tell me why it's going to work. Right? And you'll have to have the right knowledge to go and then convince him of that.
Right. So you also initially mentioned about getting a 40 hours mediation training. So our question to you then is, what is the significance of additionally getting accredited and licensed as a mediator? How does that help?
The 40-hour thing, by the way, is it's not it's not set in stone. You don't have to be a 40-hour trained mediator. Some trainings are 20 hours, some are 30, some are 50. I don't know. But the idea is to continue doing multiple trainings so that you have the recognition of different institutes and organizations, and credible institutions and organizations, right? So that's why I do consistent training. Do training, say once every 2 years or whatever. So you keep having those, I would say, recognitions from different institutes, both locally and internationally. The difference between certification and accreditation is to be accredited as a mediator, I would say the internationally accrediting body right now in the world is the International Mediation Institute, the IMI. Go and check them out. Okay, so International Mediation Institute, IMI, and they're the only ones who accredit mediators on an international scale, I would say, and they've been doing it for the last over a decade now. And they have very strict standards to be that. So you have to show the number of cases you have done, you have to show the log of how many cases you have settled, the testimonies, the different trainings you have gone, say the articles you have written. So you have to prove yourself that you are an accredited mediator, someone who, by the simple definition of accredited, is mean that you have gained the credits to be a mediator. Then there are also empaneled mediators, where you get empaneled by a particular institute or organization like CAMP or CMC or FCDR or IMASC, IAMC, Hyderabad. So that's empaneled mediators. So there's a difference. It's certified. You can be certified, but you don't have to be empaneled or accredited, right? But every accredited mediator is certified and trained, right? So like you can train tomorrow, do a 40-hour training, and that's it. You're not an accredited mediator or an empaneled mediator. You're just a certified trained mediator. But then if you go and get yourself empaneled with CMC, then you're a certified and empaneled mediator by CMC, right? So there's a difference with that. That does not mean that you have to be empaneled, by the way. You can just be certified and run solo, ad hoc, right? Lone ranger in that ways. And you can still get cases. It depends on how you market yourself.
Right, sir. As for someone who wants to, pursue some certification, wants to get some training, how should they choose from different licensing agency which provides us certifications or training programs?
I would say, firstly, look for the institute and how long it's been in business and what the future has and what's their philosophy. And you don't want to be going after them, what do you call it? Fly-by-night operators. You do a certificate and then they're disappeared from the scene. You don't know where they are, who has trained you, whatever it is. Because you want to. Tomorrow when a client comes to you and you say, I've been certified by XYZ, the client's going to go and check it up on Google. They're going to Google XYZ or who are these people, and there's no website. Then what's the point of? Or there is a very shady website. Then that is very bad. So I would say you have to look at the credibility of the institute. Second, you have to look into who's training you. You have to have good trainers who are not there just the sake of being there, but they're really invested in trying to teach you what it is. And then, of course, look into the module and see how much space is there for actually role plays and simulations and practical stuff. So that's what I would look for in a training: credibility, trainers, and the module. Most important.
Right. So in this world of virtual learning that we are in right now, for students, getting an accreditation is very simple right now, but they then do not get the opportunity to practice as a mediator. So what do you think about the same?
I say you've been fooled. Anyone who has promised you work after getting certified, you're being fooled, right? No one can. So don't fall for that. Get yourself certified, but this whole idea of being accredited it's too young. It's too early for you. You're just got out of law school, or you're still in law school. What do you want to get accredited for? You don't have the accreditation. And if you're calling yourself an accredited mediator, you're fooling everyone. What is the meaning of accredited? You should have done at least 200 hours of mediation or at least 20 mediations. You should have had feedback from at least 20 people, saying you're a good mediator. You should have testimonies of people, credible people putting up testimonies, not like, oh, Jonathan was a good mediator, Raghav. Just random one Raghav guy on my website. No, it has to be a credible person. There has to be Raghav Malhotra, CEO of something. There has to be like. So I think you have to don't build a fake profile for yourself when you're young as mediators. And I know there's a temptation to do that, but try and take it slow. I was tempted to do that when I started out. I'm going to admit it. Okay, but then I realized I shouldn't be doing it. I took a break, I stepped back, and I built a proper, I would say, profile for myself slowly. So I would say do that. Take it slow. You don't have to rush to it. Don't start calling yourself an accredited mediator. I see third year and fourth year law students calling themselves accredited mediators. No, you're not. You're not an accredited mediator. You are a trained mediator. You're probably a certified mediator. You're probably someone who's got a certificate of merit, which is great. Congratulations. But you're not an accredited mediator. To be an accredited mediator, you have to be evaluated both to an examination probably, by your clients, to their feedback, to their logs, and then you become an accredited mediator. I'll go out and admit that when I graduated, I started calling myself an accredited mediator, which was wrong. It was a mistake, and I know that now because I was not, and none of you are. You are an accredited mediator, say 3 years, 4 years down the line. Once you have practiced, you have enough of cases, you have that feedback, and then you go and get yourself actually accredited by an institute, right? So, but this is the problem with a lot of courses also that come out. They sell it as an accredited mediator. That's wrong. So I've done a lot of courses. I've trained people, and I've always made sure not to remove that word, not to call yourself an accredited mediator. Call it more certified. You're certified as a mediator or as a mediation lawyer. So yeah, I think there's a bit more awareness coming to this. When you're younger, you try to do things in a hurry, but now we're beginning to understand there's a big difference. And yeah, that's all I can say.
Right. So that brings us to our next question. Is there a difference between doing these certification courses in mediation versus doing a master's solely in mediation? Like, what is the advantage that one could get in one over the other?
Well, a master's is more, it's academic, right? I spent 1 year on a master's. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of research, theory papers, essays, practicals, role-based simulations. I had to write a 15,000 word thesis. So it's like any other master's. Training is 40-hour training. So it's more fast-paced. Of course, you can get masters that also have trainings part of it, which gives you both the academic and the practical side of things. So yeah, training is like, a crash course into something. The master's is more in depth. Having said that, you don't need a master's to be a mediator. I can put that out very clearly. I don't want people to misunderstand what I say.
Yeah, handing it over to Aditya to take it forward, please.
Thanks, Anubhav.
Aditya, you are on mute right now.
So sorry. Yes, sir. Moving on, so we have discussed the crucial aspects of mediation from the perspective of mediators. However, the parties and more importantly, the counsels representing them also need to develop a whole different skill set and a temperament shift and approach in order to ensure success of the mediation process.
Yeah, can you give me a second? I just want to answer this question because I want to wrap up my thoughts on this. If one has finished LLM and ADR, is the 40 hours training still required? My simple answer to that is no. But the question is, if you're going to be trying to mediate, say, in a court mediation center in Bombay or in Delhi or wherever you are in India, the court's going to simply tell you, boss, I don't care where you did your master's, you have to still do our 40-hour training, right? And so then you will have to do that 40-hour training. So yeah, your clients will also ask you sometimes, have you done a 40-hour training? Are you a certified mediator? And if you can sell yourself to the client by saying, I don't have a 40-hour training, but I spent a year doing a master's in mediation and I have a master's in mediation. If you can sell yourself, great. But it always is helpful to have a certificate to be a certified trained mediator. There are a lot of masters that have the 40-hour training as part of the course, like the one in MNLU. So you become a certified mediator as well. Sorry, Aditya, go ahead.
So should I repeat my question?
Yes, please.
So we have discussed mediation from the perspective of mediators. However, even the parties and more importantly, the counsels representing them, they also need to develop a whole different sort of a skill set and their shift in approach in order to ensure the success of the mediation process. So it needs to be a two-way process, not just from the mediator, but from the party and the counsel representing them. So how should the counsels alter their approach while in a mediation as opposed to other mechanisms such as litigation or arbitration?
So it's a collaborative process, of course.
Yes, sir.
Mediation is collaborative. So you have to learn the skills to be a collaborative lawyer, suddenly from being a competitive adversarial lawyer, right? In a court, you're trying to prove your client right and the other client wrong. And the better you prove your client right, the more chance you win the case. You don't do that in mediation. In mediation, you're like, hey, something has happened, which is unfortunate to both of us. We're not here to say who's right and who's wrong. But this is what we are upset with about what you have done. And this is where we are now. This is where we are. And now we want to fix this, right? And both of us will have to collaborate, compromise, accommodate each other and try and find a solution. So it's a different approach altogether. So you have to pick up those skills as a mediation lawyer: communication skills, problem solving skills, work with a mediator. So it's a different skill set, I would say, that you need to have as a mediation lawyer.
So what sort of skills should should a counsel possess, sir, in order to address their client's interest?
Well, collaborative communication skills for the start, to be a better communicator, not get aggressive. Problem solving skills, right? I would say that is very important as well. You have to, of course, start having that attitude and approach of being calm and composed and not getting upset, right? The strategies are different. So negotiation skills at the end of the day, a good lawyer will have to have good negotiation skills, the strategies that you build, what kind of offers you make, the tone at which you make those offers, right? When to make which offer, who should be sitting at the table with you. Well, the way you build your entire case in a mediation is different from how you build in a litigation scenario. In a mediation, sometimes lawyers come with a whole litany of 5-6 people with them. There'll be a CA, a CS, financial officer, CEO, this, that, and it's like a whole jing bang will be sitting there. And it's all part of the strategy of how they want to have that negotiation. So, yeah, I mean, I can't share with you what the skills are required on this call. Obviously, I can spend weeks on that. That's a whole different course altogether. But yeah, you will require to have the skills to be representing in mediation. Yeah.
And so since mediation is considered a client-centric mechanism to resolve the disputes, how should a counsel prepare their clients so that they can actively participate in a mediation setting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it starts with first preparing yourself and then also telling your client that what to expect and what not to expect out of you in a mediation. If you're the lawyer, they might think, oh, my lawyer is going to go and fight for me and shut the other person down and all that stuff. So you're like, boss, this is not a court. We have a different setup here, a different approach. So expectations have to be very clearly laid out. Expectations of the mediator have to be very clearly laid out. If you don't tell your client and very clearly that the mediator is not going to pass an order or a judgment and tell you whether you're right or you're wrong, the other person's right or the other person's wrong. So expectations of both yourself and the mediator have to be very clearly laid out. I would say involve the client more in the negotiations, in the conversations. The client does not get a chance to speak in court. Most often, you're the one who's speaking, right? So get the client involved in the strategy, building the mediation plan. That's very important. Asking them to maintain civility and calm is very important. Because if, a mediation might be just 5 or 10 minutes on, and if your client gets angry and starts swearing at the other side, that's the end of the mediation. So a lot of psychological and mental preparation is also very important to the client, besides the strategies and stuff like that, right? So that's where, what are the important documentation that are required in the mediation, right? Which can help, move the case forward, move the conversation forward, right? So yeah, I think so. It comes down, one of the biggest challenges in mediation is to agree on the facts of the case. Once you agree on the facts of the case and both parties agree on the facts of the case, then that's you hitting common ground almost and saying that, oh, we both agree that this is what has happened. Now let's find a solution. But you'll spend hours and days sometimes just agreeing on the facts of the case because the other party will not agree. They'll have a different perspective to what you said. This is the way we read the contract. No, but this can't be. This is the way everyone reads the contract. How can you have read it this way? But this is not what you said in the mail. This is not corroborating with what is in the contract. And you just go on forever and forever. So once you, I think, so that's another thing where the lawyer will tell the client that keep faith, don't lose hope, don't lose your calm. We have to just first get everyone on the same page as the facts of the case. And then we can move towards the solution. So yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Explaining the fundamentals of mediation, that it's confidential, voluntary, neutral, all that kind of stuff. Something that you also do as well. Once again, a whole day can be spent on training you on how to train your clients.
Thank you, sir. So Nirag will take from it.
Right. So initially we also talked about this particular aspect that, mediation is slowly becoming an IT concept in the legal field, mostly due to the discussion around the mediation bit. So what are your thoughts on the mediation bin and also the compulsory mediation that exists there?
What do you mean by IT concept? Is it some new slang?
No,
Just
not a slang as such. Maybe more of technology that is happening right now. Having virtual mediations, these.
Yeah, so I think it's, well, I think mediation has just gone online because it's become more convenient for sure, right? You have more access to everyone, to the mediator, to the parties, to the lawyers. You don't have to spend on traveling, stay, and blah, blah, blah. So online mediation is here to stay. Virtual mediation is here to stay, right? So technology is assisting in mediation. There are a lot of parties who come to us and say, no, we want to be in a physical space. Fair enough. And then with social distancing, you can have those mediations. But I think now they're almost moving back to normal, hopefully. So I think, but a lot of mediation will continue to stay online, especially cross-border. If before you would be like, oh, he's in America, how do we bring him down? And then one party would just stall the mediation, right? Now, no. Now you're like, get onto that Zoom call. Let's get moving. So I think it does help. I already addressed this thing about mandatory mediation. I wouldn't use the word compulsory mediation. It's mandatory mediation. Okay. That's the word that's being used there, I guess. I'm not sure whether even that word is being used there. But Section 6 of the new law, the Commercial Codes Act, of course, had a bit of that as well. But it's simple, as I said. It's for you to come and try mediation for a couple of sessions. And if you don't like it, just don't continue, right? And if you don't do that, and if you go and file a case without doing that, then the court or the judge may impose a penalty on you. So the key word being may. So no one is holding you by the throat and saying, go and mediate. It continues to remain a voluntary process. So to anyone who says that it's the new law is taking away the voluntariness of mediation, they have not understood it and they've got over emotional about it. And they're not understanding the nuances of those 2 sessions which you're asked to do. Right? Let's take it the other way around, right? Let's take it the other way around where you're a small company, there's a big MNC taking you on, wanting to take you on in litigation and drain you of all your resources in litigation, right? Imagine a big MNC taking on you're a small entrepreneur in a small B-town city in India, right? And they're taking you to task. And you don't know that mediation exists. And now because of Section 6, you go into 2 sessions and you're like, hey, I would like to mediate this. I would like to resolve this. I don't want to drag myself into court. And you finally know that it exists. So isn't that a great thing? You can be like, oh, I know it exists, but no, I don't want to do it. I'm going to take on this MNC. Fair enough. Go and take it on. But you have to first at least. So I think the awareness is the most. I'm happy about Section 6 just because of its capacity to create awareness about mediation. I don't even care if the mediation goes on or if it settles. I want both parties to know that they can mediate if they want to. If you don't want to, just step out of it. No one's forcing you, right? So that's what it is.
I guess we have run a little over time, so we'll just address the questions put up by the attendees. So Aditya, could you please take that up?
Yeah, thank you, sir. So the first question we have is from Jia Singh. The mediation competitions that are held, is it how mediation takes place in real life situations?
No. Okay. Mediation in real life are more intense and more dramatic. For sure.
So how?
I think everyone likes to be very civil and very nice in a competition, right? You'll train, you will spend hours rehearsing, we'll say it this way, and we'll say thank you for your comments, thank you very much for your offer. No one speaks like that in real life. They'll be like, that does not work for us. Sorry. So no one's giving you points, right, in real life. You don't have to impress the judges, right, in real life. So I think it's different. It's obviously different. And that's why I say observe. Go and observe. Every High Court mediation center has mediators working there. Reach out to them. Reach out to the mediators who are working in High Court mediation centers. Ask them, can we come and observe your mediations? And you'll see the difference. It's very much different. But the basics remain. The basics, yes, remain. Like your opening statement, the way you form the agenda, the way you navigate through that, the caucus, all that is very real, yes. But obviously the emotions and the drama of it is never going to be the same like the competition. Real emotions you're dealing with, not fake ones. So, yeah.
Thank you, sir. So our next question is from Satyam Sahu. So he's asking how and why mediation is inexpensive.
I don't know. I don't understand that question. I can see it there, but I don't understand what you mean by that, Satyam. Sorry. What do you mean by it's inexpensive?
So I guess he's comparing mediation to litigation.
You're saying why it's cheaper?
Yes, sir. That is what I believe, sir. How it is cheaper compared to litigation.
Well, it's a new product, and I don't think it's cheaper, by the way. There are mediators who charge anything between 15 to 20,000 rupees an hour to 80,000 to a lakh an hour to 2 lakh an hour. So it's not cheap. What you are thinking about is court referred mediation centers, which are for free. And yeah, that's the wrong impression that you have got of mediation. And you're not wrong, because that 90% of mediations in India are court connected mediations. But the commercial mediations are, mediators charge quite heavily. Yeah. So it's not inexpensive.
So, sir, but then I believe that those parties also must belong to some multi-million and billion MNCs. So they can afford that.
Yeah, so I think for personal disputes, you have mediators who charge, say, 10,000 rupees an hour, 15,000 rupees an hour for divorce mediations. So, yeah. So, the way the things are built in mediation is we say, purchase 5 hours of mediation.
Okay, it's a package.
Yeah. So, purchase 5 hours of mediation, say, and that would come to 50,000 rupees. And say you use only 3 hours, 4 hours. So, a lot of mediators refund. It depends. I don't want to say that that's a set rule, or it's not, but different mediators have different policies. Some mediators will refund 50%, some mediators will refund full 100% of unused hours. Some mediators will refund 20%, depends. Because they're also booking their time, right? If you book your time, means you have to pay for it. So yeah, it depends. And different regions have different practice. Like in America and UK, if you booked me for an hour, you booked me for an hour, you have to still pay. Should want to use it, it's your thing.
So how can a mediator give suggestions to the parties?
No, because my simple answer to that is no, because you're a mediator, you're not a conciliator. Okay, a conciliator can give suggestions, give advice, give opinions, even offer solutions and say, hey, here's a solution, do you both agree? That's a conciliator's job. Here's a solution, do you both agree? And if one of them agrees, another one does not agree, then conciliation is failed. If both agree, conciliation is successful. That's a conciliator. A mediator does not suggest. A mediator tries to plant the idea in the mind of the parties and make them come up with the ideas themselves by asking the right questions. The skill of the mediator is his or her skill to ask questions so that the solution is planted in the head of the party. That's a good mediator. So you want to suggest, you just call yourself a conciliator. It's a very thin line, and I think I don't know. At the end of the day, it comes down to what parties expect and what is the satisfaction they want. If they're expecting you to be someone who's going to give suggestions, then you'll have to very be clearly saying that I can do that for sure. But that means I'm not going to be purely a mediator. I'm going to be stepping into the role as a conciliator also, right? And if you're fine with that, then I'm fine with that. Because the other party might not like it. Let's take, for example, Anurag and Aditya, you all are both in a dispute and I'm the mediator. And Aditya, you say, listen, why don't you suggest this to Anurag and see how he responds to it, right? And you have already suggested this to him 2 months before and he said no to it. And now if I suggest it to him, he's going to be like, what the hell is wrong with Jonathan? Why is he pushing me to agree to this deal? And then he'll know that you told me to say this to him, right? And it could be a different thing. So if Anurag also says, hey, and both of you say that, hey, Jonathan, if we are stuck, we would like you to suggest some ideas to us. I'll be like, fine, that's okay. I can do that. But I can't force you and I will not push you for it, but I can suggest. But I'll be stepping into a role of, say, a conciliator there. And if you're fine with that, that's cool by me. So I think as long as expectations are set, these are very academic things. 99%, 99.9% of mediators suggest. For academic reasons, I would say no. But practical reasons, it is something that's both parties have. I think I would draw the line at saying if your parties are agreeable to you doing that, do it. Right? But if Anurag expects me to only be asking questions, facilitating, and he wants to be coming up with his own solutions and does not want suggestions from me, he's not going to appreciate that, and the mediation is going to fail. He'll be like, "Listen, you were pushing me," and I probably wasn't even pushing him. I was just suggesting. But he'll be like, "You're pushing me," and that's the end of the mediation. I would draw the line there.
So moving on to our last question: will mediating in national level competitions and rendering insider training sessions help while being in law school?
Yes. Absolutely. You get to challenge yourself, test your skills. The beauty about mediation competitions is that you will go train your best. Okay, you bring your A game to the competition. Like, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and negotiate this. I have this 10 fantastic offers that I have researched. I Googled the entire damn internet and I got this 10 great offers to solve this. But remember, the other side is also preparing. And unlike a moot court scenario where you have your own turn, present and rebut and all that stuff, in the negotiation, it is on the spot. They will interrupt you on the spot and ask you a question while you're making an offer. And if you don't have an answer to that, you're stunned. So it's very improv. It's very on the spot. Yeah, it's like it's like theater. It's real life theater. And if you're not ready for it, I would say you can be stunned out of nowhere and you won't know what to do with it. And that's what I love about a negotiation competition. It's so on the spot. You can just test the other person on the spot and the other person will have to respond to it, in some way or the other. Even choosing not to respond could be a response, but they'll have to do it in the right way. So yeah, you have to test your skills and competitions are the best place to do it.
Thank you, sir. Anurag will now take over.
Right. Before concluding the session, there was just one last question, which was like, we have recently seen some examples when mediation was attempted in situations which can be defined as prickly at best. They did not succeed, which can be defined as prickly at best. They did not succeed basically and were then adjudged by courts where the judgment was more of a compromise rather than one based on the statutes. So do you think such examples of attempted mediations are giving the process a bad reputation?
Well, so I wouldn't say it's bad reputation to mediation. I think, well, if you're talking about Ayodhya, or you're talking about some other disputes where you think it started off with mediation, then it went on to a situation where the courts just said, "Oh, this was the agreement." I don't know whether this is inspired by that event, but I think mediation is mediation, and what the judge has finally put down as a compromise is, that's a compromise settlement, right? That could be a judicial settlement, or that could be, but that's not exactly a mediation settlement agreement. A mediation settlement agreement is where two parties collaboratively come up with a solution. But the media is not using mediation the right way, the word mediation the right way, and I agree with that. The word mediation has been thrown around just loosely here and there and everywhere, right? Anyone just does anything randomly and mediation. Like I remember there was some riots, I think in North India some few months ago, or probably a year ago, in UP or Bihar, and there were some riots or some street riots or some village riots, and someone went in there, some politician, and tried and mellowed things down and said, so and so mediated a dispute. Now, God knows what happened there, whether he threatened them or whether there were, very, I don't know, violent means used to calm things down. We don't know what happened. So using the word mediation very loosely is dangerous to the profession for sure. And the media needs to be sensitized about it. Editors of newspapers, broadcast agencies have to be told to try and use the word mediation a bit more. Because it's a profession, it's a growing profession now. And if the right word is not used, then people will start thinking anything is mediation. That you just go and stop a street fight, slap one person who's weaker, and then let the other person go on their way, and that's mediation. That's not. Resolving the dispute is not mediation. It's got so much more to it, right? There are so many more principles to mediation.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for addressing all the questions. We wish that time went on in a loop and we had the time to extract as much knowledge as we possibly could. Having tried our best.
Thanks, Anurag. Thanks, Aditya. I think this was a great conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. And congratulations to CMC, the Bombay Chamber, and of course, RG Annual Patiala for putting this together. I had a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We are very thankful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation to take this session to guide the students regarding the various aspects of mediation. And we hope to organize more of such events in collaboration with you. I would also thank the participants for showing such an overwhelming excitement about the webinar series. We hope that you have enjoyed this session and were also able to derive an art of knowledge. We would like to inform you that we'll have our next session titled ADR Incorporate next week with another vastly experienced luminary, Mr. Karthike Mahajan, who is an international dispute resolution lawyer at Qatar. Till then, watch Jonathan Sir's TEDx talk and have a nice weekend. Thank you.